After hearing some reports that the Chicago Bulls worked out some players, now we can go ahead and add Asa Newell to the list of players that have now been worked out by the Chicago Bulls. Is there more to come? Some names that we get to talk about on today's episode. But before we get into it, you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shot Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's episode. So if you're tuned in, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. Now, it's coming straight from my man's Asa Newell Instagram page, posted that Chicago Bulls workout jersey, and I'm happy to see it. I ain't gonna lie to you, but hey, I think that when the Chicago Bulls, they going out now right now, you see some of the guys that they previously worked out, you looked at them, you just say, But now I think the Chicago Bulls, as we get closer and closer to draft day, that you'll see more notable names pop up. Asa Newell is pretty much one of the first guys that they worked out who was previously projected or currently projected within that top 20, outside of maybe a guy that's kind of rising up in Drake Powell. Have not seen much or anything at all right now to say how the workout went, but I would imagine that the workout for Asa Newell was one that got the Chicago Bulls pretty damn hyped, because when you sit there, you watch Asa Newell, you look at the size of him, you look at, the strength of him, you look at the play style of him, and he's a very intriguing player that you can add on to the Chicago Bulls and have him run with these young pups and see what he could potentially bring to the Chicago Bulls franchise for years and years to come. I look at a guy like Asa Newell and say, hey, that guy has motor. Hey, that guy can go out there and block shots. Hey, that guy can be the lob threat that I believe the Chicago Bulls desperately need to go out there to add another dimension for the Chicago Bulls. I look at Asa Newell coming out of Georgia, and he's doing all the things that he was doing and very well could fit next to guys like Amontes Buzelis, fit next to a guy like Josh Giddey and be able to help Kobe White out there. And I look at a guy that it would not require much for him to get started early in his career by playing basketball minutes. I do think that will be some growing that he has to do. I think that you want to see how he can grow offensively for your Chicago Bulls team, but we do know that he is and very well capable of being a defensive presence for the Chicago Bulls that they desperately need. Now, if they go out here and select Asa Newell in this upcoming draft, it will be more moves that are going to have to be on the way. It's going to be decisions that you got to make about Nikola Vucevic. It's going to be decisions that you got to make about Zach Collins and Jalen Smith, whether that's to let Zach Collins stick around a little bit longer, let him go. And the same thing can be said about guys like Jalen Smith. But it's absolutely good that the Chicago Bulls have started this thing out by saying, all right, we're going to work out a couple guys in the second round, that are projected to not even be drafted or in that second round. Let's kind of knock out our list with that. And now it's time to get into the meat and potatoes of everything, just to see who's going to be the player for us so we can go ahead and continue to build this out. I always remind people that the Chicago Bulls, they laid out their plans and how they want to operate and how they want to move this offseason. And that's getting a good player in the draft, potentially two, and then going out and finding additional help this offseason sometime around free agency. Now, if that's going to come with some trades, they add on to that, but still pick up somebody off the street or get somebody to come over here and sign, that's still going to be a part of the plans as well. But to expect the Chicago Bulls to just go crazy overboard with it, I don't have that expectation. Maybe we can go ahead and maybe they go ahead and surprise me, but I don't anticipate anything major coming out of the Chicago Bulls organization this offseason, even though guys like Shams had put it out there that he expects this to be one of the craziest free agencies or off seasons in a very long time. So we'll see. But it's good that the Chicago Bulls got to down to work for Asa Newell and starting right there. I'm interested to see what other names might pop up, because you're seeing that the draft board is shaking up a little bit. I've seen that If you go up there, you look at ESPN's best available, guys are moving up, guys are moving down. You see Derek Queen drop down. I don't know if the Chicago Bulls are interested in that. Apparently, I reported on it yesterday that he's not on the Chicago Bulls radar right now. But do they still go in and bring him in for a workout to see what he could potentially bring for the Chicago Bulls? Another guy's Kyler Murray Boyles. He's been mocked to the Chicago Bulls numerous times. I wonder how the Chicago Bulls feel about him as a prospect. We know he has a lot of tools defensively. We know that he's athletic, but there is a lot of things lacking when it comes to him offensively. Do the Chicago Bulls feel that they can work with a player like that? How do they view a guy like Kyler Murray Boyles as he integrates with the Chicago Bulls, and will it necessarily make sense for the Chicago Bulls? And how do they, you know what I'm saying, go about business as these guys enter in? And I know one of my guys, Hayes, over there at Chicago Bulls, said he's not a big fan of Kyler Murray Boyles. I seen a couple other people shoot it down as well. Me, I'm right there in the middle. Look, I don't think you can necessarily discount young players coming into the league. You can go out there and you could say that you don't like said player and what they have or things like that. But we've seen guys come in, they work on their game, they get better, and they excel. So I'm not going to completely shoot them down. I'm not the biggest fan. I'll keep it a buck right there. But I do like a lot of things that he can bring athletically and defensively, but that's not the end all be all. Another guy I'm going to be interested to see is, do they bring over the international prospect Noah Essingwe for a workout? This guy fits the prototype that the Chicago Bulls typically might want to look at from the outside looking in. Just this long, big guy who can do a number of things offensively and defensively. He just need to maybe get on a nice weight gain program to where he just adding just a little bit of weight. Not too much. Don't have to go crazy with that. But I see the athleticism. I see the handle. I see the offensive ability. You love what he could provide defensively. Not necessarily being mocked to the Chicago Bulls right now. But Noah Essingwe is an interesting prospect for the Chicago Bulls. And I wonder if they have any interest in that, because I have not seen any whatsoever, because he's been slated to go at 10 to the Toronto Raptors. So we'll see where that all lays out. Another player is Igor Demi. Do the Chicago Bulls go out there and draft a player that's kind of like Josh Giddey after you're going to have to pay Josh Giddey? It will be a weird move. Not necessarily going to sit here and act like I like it. I kind of understand it with, you know what I'm saying, with maybe some expectations of you as a Chicago Bulls team saying, hey, we got Lonzo on this team friendly deal. There's some value there. Let's try to move him. Or if you're trying to look at replacements or somebody that can play off ball of Josh Giddey, don't necessarily know that Igor can play off ball, because we've seen that his strength is more so on ball. So that will be something that's interesting, and we'll be paying attention to see if that comes out. But it's definitely, even some of the other guards. Do you go out there and do you see if you want to take a reach at Trey Johnson? Hell of a player. But I think he's not even in the range of the Chicago Bulls, because they'll absolutely more than likely have to trade up for him. And I don't necessarily believe that's the route that the Chicago Bulls want to take right now. And what about Jace Richardson coming out of Michigan State? Another interesting prospect, another guy that can go out there and get buckets. But at the same time, you got a bunch of guards. And my pushback is always going to be, what about the front court? You cannot continue to neglect the front court. But it's definitely an interesting thing to see, and we're going to keep watching it out, because that list of workouts is continuing to grow. Right now, we already had workouts from Asa Newell, Drake Powell, Mark Sears out of Alabama, Jake Blackwell out of Wisconsin. That's a guard who has until June 15th to go ahead and say, nah, I'm going to get out this NBA combine. I'm going to pull my name from the NBA draft, and I'm going back to college. So we're going to keep our eyes on that. They worked out Juwan Gary, a guard out of Nebraska. And then we talked about it last week, CJ Huntley and Miles Kelly, respectively, that some of the other guys that the Chicago Bulls have worked out, at least until this moment. So the Bulls are doing their due diligence. We've seen that they worked out some of those guys that are going to be slated in the second round or possibly could go undrafted. Now it's time to see how they attack the guys that can be real possibilities. Now it's time to see who they go after You know what I'm saying? And it's going to tell us a lot. Me personally, I think that we're going to kind of see the way that the Chicago Bulls are going. Now, I would expect that one of those guys that they do work out will be selected. Maybe a Drake Powell. Some will say that it's a reach, but they made their decisions. You know what I'm saying? Because it's coming down to, do you feel that the Chicago Bulls should be drafting best player available or for need? A lot of people have their, minds made up about whatever. Me personally, I say if you get your shot at Kalai Malawak, he's right there. Derek Queen right there. And then you got some of the other guys that you like a Drake Powell or Igor Demi. You might have to try to figure that out. You're going to have to try to figure that out if you're going with who you believe is the best player available, or at that particular moment, you trying to see what can that need also be the best player available at that particular moment. So it's going to be interesting because my mindset has kind of shifted over a little bit to trying to see if the Chicago Bulls will be going best player available or simply just going off need. I know that if we're trying to build something for the future and have an opportunity to have the assets necessary to eventually trade for somebody who can bring us a little bit more on top of building what we already have, you have to have talent to trade. Not only draft asset, you have to have talent to trade. So we'll be monitoring that. We'll be talking about it and discussing it as we get closer and closer to the NBA draft. But hey, in the meantime, in between time, that is it for me today. So I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode, man. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, hit them comment button below. Let us know how you feeling about Asa Newell down the box, and who do you expect to see be worked out in the next few weeks. Let me know down below. But hey, that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all always see red, and y'all already know. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one, for sure.
Cognac. Gang.